final screenshot.
I'm recording too, just in case like that we have two, because we have learned from the CEPAL course that there is no few recordings being done.
Great.
Enough, just in case.
Buongiorno, Alessandro.
Buongiorno.
Pilar, hay dos personas, tres es más que están sin unmuted, pero no sé si yo lo puedo hacer. Nicolás, tú le puedes dar también el co-host a Pilar para que nos
Sí,
ayude.
estoy co-host. Voy a darles al...
Ahí Brite, Liripi o Sharik, Lester, yo no veo que son unmuted, entonces es posible que estén, ¿eh?
Sí. Silenciar a todos.
Master Pilar.
Sí.
Listo.
Okay, we will wait one more minute and then we will start. We are receiving a new attendees every minute, so it's worth it to wait a few more minutes. Okay, I think we can start. I would like to ask to Elizabeth and John to turn your camera, please. Thank you. And I will share my screen also. Now you're seeing my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we can start. Thank you for those who are joining us this evening, afternoon, or morning, wherever you are right now. My name is Nicolás Tomke. I am connecting from Chile, and I am happy to host together with Rocio from FAO this third episode of the Forest and Climate Transparency webinar series, in which we will learn more about the progress in Asia Pacific through the case of Papua New Guinea. Before to start with our presentation speakers, I would like to comment our house of the rules. So please kindly mute yourself for the entire event. For the Q&A portion, please send your question through the chat box and raise your hand function to personally ask your question. In case of the internet connectivity issues, kindly take note of the credentials so you may rejoin our conference. This webinar is being recorded for documentation purpose, so please keep appropriate behavior during the entire event. And lastly, if you're having any technical difficulties or issues that you should address, you may message any of the organizers through the chat box. So a few words about IPSA. IPSA, the International Forestry Student Organization, is the largest international association for a student of forestry and related fields. Our vision is a work that appreciates forests with a mission to enrich our members' educations through international events, networking, and intercultural exchange. Currently, we are more than 12,000 members around 64 countries, forming more than 140 local communities. Motivated students organized since symposia since 1973, and IPSA was officially established as an NGO in 1990. We have a lot of partners like FAO, of course, C4, the European Foreign Institutes, and other international processes. And we participate in international events through young delegates. Through the question how to establish a local committee, please, you have to bring together a group of at least 5 motivated forestry students or some related science and fields. Then you have to contact the regional representative in your region, in this case for Papua New Guinea, and they are the regional representative for Asia Pacific, and also our member councillor. And then you have to communicate them that you want to form a new local committee, and then you are already starting the process. So saying that, I now would like to present our main speakers for today's meeting. First, we have Elizabeth Caidon. Elizabeth has a degree in forestry from the University of Technology of Papua New Guinea. She's the manager of climate change within the Forest Policy and Climate Directorate in the country. As well, she's the responsible for the management of the forest and land use change data. The PNG-FA is the responsible for the National Forestry Inventory under the National Forestry Monitoring System, has supported the other elements of forest plans, and as well contributing to other reports such as the NDC, PURE, and the GHG inventory, in particular with the LUCF sector. Collaboration has established collaboration with the Climate Change and Development Authority, part of the Ministry of Environmental and Climate Change. Also, we have John Pena. John has a degree in forestry from the University of Technology of Papua New Guinea. He's the Senior Forest Plan Officer for the Forest Plan Branch within the Forest Policy and Climate Directorate of the country. As well, he is responsible for the updating and the revising of the forest plan national and regional levels in the PNG. He's also assists with planning of the biomass survey, the National Forestry Inventory. Prior of this, to this current role, he was working with the UNFCCC in the Forest Assessment and Data Management Officer under the National Forestry Inventory Project. And before that, the RED Plus Coordinator for the USA LEAD project. So thank you, Elizabeth and John, for being with us today. Now I will invite you to share your screen and start your presentation. You will have 40 minutes for this. I asked to the audience that you can send your question through this chat, so we can collect them during the presentations and then addressing during the Q&A section. So please, Elizabeth, if you can share your screen.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, thank you, Nicholas, for that. I'll just start sharing the screen. That's happening. Oh. Can see the screen?
Yeah, it's uploading.
Oh, okay. If you don't mind, I'm just going to switch off the video. Sorry, I'm Elizabeth. I think Nicholas has already given a brief background about myself. So I'll just head straight into the presentation. So I'll just switch off my video just in the event if the network goes off. So yeah. Sorry, that.
Yes, now we are seeing the presentation.
Okay, basically my colleague and I, John Penner, will basically talk about the Papua New Guinea National Forest Monitoring System, which we've got significant support from a lot of development partners. And one particular is FAO, who has helped us with much of the development of the National Forest Monitoring System. Okay, this is basically the outline of tonight's session. We'll just touch base about what PNG has done in terms of REDD+ and the National Forest Monitoring System, an overview of what we've done so far, and because of interest of time, we do have a link for the National Forest Inventory. There is to the YouTube channel, which we'll briefly touch on that in the later part of this presentation. We'll touch a bit on the the PNG's forest reference level, which Nicholas has mentioned a bit on the biannual update reports, what we call BUR, and then plus the REDD+ technical annex, which is usually attached with the BURs. And then the last part is basically PNG's plan in terms of its first submission of the first biannual transparency report. Okay. So basically, for any countries that want to participate in REDD+ activities, it is a must that you have these 4 elements, or what they call the 4 REDD+ elements under the Warsaw framework. So we have the national strategy or the action plan, and then you have the National Forest Monitoring System, the Safeguard Information System, and the Forest Reference Level. So you will note that we had PNG has been supported by different development partners, and which we have the European Union, the UNRED, the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility Program, we have the UNDP, FAO, the Global Environment Facility Program, we have the JICA, the Global Green Growth Institute, and of course the Australian government. And also we've recently got through some an MOU with the Japanese government as well. So you will note that we also have the National REDD+ strategy. This is PNG's National REDD+ strategy. So it's from 2017 to 2027. And then we have the Safeguard Information Framework document, which our colleagues from the Climate Change and Development Authority on behalf of PNG have submitted the summary of information. So that's one component of the Safeguard Information System. On the National Forest Monitoring System, you will note that there is just a screenshot of the web portal. So this is part of the National Forest Monitoring System that basically shows information about showing the different in terms of forestry, mining, and so forth. And we also have the publication at the bottom, which is one of the first publication that was initially published and launched in 2019. And the PNG Forest Authority is in the process of publishing its second report. So this should come out probably in the 3rd quarter of this year. Okay, so basically this slide here shows the an overview of the country's submissions that they have done in 2014 until 2023. So from the top, you have the forest reference submissions to the UNFCCC. So you will notice that PNG did submit its first forest reference level in 2017. And then we've submitted the second one early this year in January. So this report is still under technical review. So it's going through its process. So probably by next year or so, we should know the outcome, but it's still going under review if it's the UNFCCC assessment. At the bottom, you will notice this, it says UNFCCC REDD+ results. This is the REDD+, the technical annex that is usually attached to the biannual update report. So you will notice that in 2019, we submitted one, and then we submitted the other one in 2022. So at the bottom, you just see basically a summary of information of how many countries have submitted their forest emission levels or their forest reference levels to the UNFCCC so far. And then there's a summary about 84 submissions so far. Okay, so this slide here is basically just a summary of the PNG's nationally determined contribution, or what we call NDC. So this is just a screenshot of the emissions coming from the land use change and forestry, what we call LULUCF sector. So much of this information is generated by PNGFA. So we basically do the forest and land use change assessment. And then from this assessment, we're able to determine in terms of how much emissions is coming out from the activities, especially for the different land use categories. So this is the country's NDC. So it says it was launched in 2020. So this is a 10-year plan. So it will go until 2030. So I guess in the middle of 2025, there would be a review of how much have we achieved in terms of the targets that are set out in the NDC. So you'll notice that for 2025, the LULU sector is expected to reduce about 10,000 gigagrams of CO2 equivalent of emissions from the sector itself. So there's some percentage of a 25 reduction of annual deforestation and 25 reduction of annual forest degradation. And also to more or less encourage to increase the forest plantation through enhancement of the ecosystem and restoration programs. Okay, for this slide, this is basically showing in terms of PNG to support, to access funding through the RED Plus financing opportunities. So these are some of the financing RED Plus financing opportunities. So for PNG, we've submitted the Green Climate Fund, or what we say GCF, for the results-based payment. For the concept note was submitted in 2019. Unfortunately, PNG wasn't able to have access to those funds because by then the GCF funds was exhausted by then. So we hope that in the next submission, when the funds are available, we would have access to those results-based payment. And the other one is the LEAF Coalition proposal. That's another one that was submitted in 2021. And this year we are planning to progress registration of this proposal. So these proposals are basically submitted by the Climate Change Development Authority as the designated authority in country, especially with climate change activities. They're mostly responsible for the submissions of these proposals and the concept notes. So you will see there's another one here, Our Trees, which is another concept note that was submitted in 2021. And just like the LEAF one, they're also going to progress the registration for this as well for this year. So you'll notice that there is some under this LEAF coalition, which is the lowering emission by accelerating forest finance. So you can see there's a number of companies here that have more or less put funding into this big financing as a way to support countries in terms of RED Plus activities. Okay, now we move into the overview of the RED Plus and the National Forest Monitoring System, or what we call the NFMS. Okay, so for PNG, in terms of the National Forest Monitoring System, or MRV, we note that for MRV, you have to have an activity data and then your emission factor, and that should give you your emissions estimate. So for PNG, we have the activity data, we have the Collect Earth. This system is managed by the PNG Forest Authority. So this is more point-based sampling. We will briefly discuss this in the next couple of slides. And then we have the Terra PNG, which is managed by the Climate Change Development Authority. This is more wall-to-wall mapping itself. So basically, these are the two activity data that is currently used for the estimation of the emissions coming from the forestry or LULUCF. And in terms of emission factor, we are currently doing a national forest inventory. So we do have some data, but we have the NFI and we also have the permanent sample plots, so what we call the PSP data. And we also use the IPCC guidelines in terms of specific default values. Transparency, this should, much of this work should also contribute to transparency. So we have the PNG Red Plus and Forest Monitoring web portal. So this web portal is currently managed by the Climate Change Development Authority. Okay, so I touched briefly about Collected. So this is what the system looks like. So Collected is one of the tools that is developed under the Open Forest initiative by the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. So you will note here that there are several tools that is shown here. So PNG, we have used almost half of what's shown here. So we've used Collect Mobile, Collect Earth, and Cult. So right now for the forest and land use change assessment, we're using Collect Earth. So it's more user-friendly in the sense that it's custom designed specific to our country's circumstances. So much of the land use categories is more specific to PNG. So we've been using this Collected system since its inception in 2013, and we've continuously to use this because we feel it's more in our line of work. It's easy to use and we are able to manage it. And you can also make specific changes to it when you, depending on the assessment that you're doing. So okay, so this is what the Collect Earth in terms of the methodology of the system. So like I mentioned previously, it's on sample points. So we have about 25,279 points that covers the entire landmass of PNG. So they cover the 6 IPCC land use categories. So you have forest land, cropland, settlement, grassland, wetland, and other land. So you will notice that there is an additional option of none. So we have this option of none is basically where neither of these categories that fall under the 6 categories, we put it under none. And then, like I said, the land use categories are specific to PNG circumstances. In terms of human impact types, these go by the mainly logging, fire, grazing, sawmilling, and gardening, and others. So you can see briefly, excuse me, you can see that you have just a picture of the, there's a sample of the plot itself, or the sampling plot. So these sampling plots are basically 100 by 100 meters. So they're like 1 hectare plots. So you can see there's a activity of logging happening there. So that's part of what we call forest degradation. So now we move into the multi-purpose forest inventory. So this is where my colleague John Penna will touch on the inventory itself, and then I'll continue after when he's finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Can
We can hear you, John.
okay, wait. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
I think you passed to mute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The multi-purpose national forest inventory. Commenced in the actual field work started in 2017, but the inception and all this work that was done prior to this. It started in 2013 to 14, coming up this way. So 2017 was the actual field work that started. From the slide, I'm sorry, I'm using my phone, so I cannot see the slide and talk at the same time. But from the slide, what Elizabeth has showed you, we have a number of activities that we do, that is being carried out under the National Forest Inventory. The first step is the plot design. We have a secular plot design, and those we call them clusters because there are four clusters that are spread 100 meters apart, selected from the sampling. They collect using the collected the 4x4. There's a grid that was laid over the PNG map, and from 4 kilometer grid spread. So from those points, randomly these cluster sites were selected to be the NFI National Forest Inventory clusters. So a total of 1,000 was selected for the NFI. In some provinces, the landmass was small, so the spread the distance, the grid was reduced to 2 kilometers. But for the rest of most of the country, it's we're using a 4 kilometer by 4 kilometer grid, and from this we were selected those clusters, and a total of 1,000 clusters were selected to conduct the NFI. It's called multi-purpose National Forest Inventory. Firstly, the first thing, there's 4 components. One, we call it the upper plants. This is dealing with trees and plants 1 cm diameter and above. That's the upper plants. And then we call the lower plants. These are dealing with shrubs, plants 1 cm in diameter and below. And then we have the geological component with assessment of entomology, ants, birds, moths, fruit flies are measured, assessed, but this is carried out by what we have engaged what we call there's a specialist in this field. PNGFA does not have an entomology division, so this was given to the an institute called the Binatang Research Institute in PNG. So they do the entomology aspect of component of the NFI. And for PNGFA, we only deal with the upper plants from 1 cm diameter and above to trees and above to top canopy of trees, and then the lower plants, And the other component is the soils component, where we assess soils to get the as far as 1 meter soil profile and a topsoil survey. So these all 4 components were carried out simultaneously throughout since the commencement of the NFI in 2017. As you can see, some of the pictures in there are mostly the trainings we did, and some trainings were done in Australia, and through those because this was basically a new kind of surveying practice that we were trying to involve with. So a lot of trainings were conducted, and we had to bring in experts, FAO, through FAO, and EU had to bring in experts to train us to do this, to the multi-purpose inventory, considering all the biomass, trying to measure all the biomass in the forest. Okay, I think, yep. Next slide. Hello. Hello.
Yes, we are hearing you,
Oh,
John.
sorry. Okay, I've just touched a little bit about the plot design. The plot design that you can see at the top left-hand corner. Those are nested plots from a 25-meter radius to 15-meter, 10-meter, and 3-meter radius. The cluster design is the smaller one on the far left. That's the 4 clusters around 100 meters apart. Around the cluster. So there's 4 clusters. The plots are designed to make sure that we have there's an equal obtaining a good data. So the design of the plots following respective protocols. So from each protocol, each plot radius has its own a criteria of measurement for the plants. This is basically for the plants. So for the entomology and the insects and birds, they're measured around the cluster, the boundary of the cluster. So they basically their point of measurement is set around there. But for the plants and the lower plants and the upper plants, we measured within the plot is separated by the size of the plots, the nested plots, the 25-meter radius. And then those the square, the little 1-by-1 clip plots are where we collect. We measure this regeneration, and we collect dead wood, and where also the topsoils are measured, assessed, and the soil profile of 1 meter is around the outside of the 25-meter radius. So that's basically what we do during the assessment of when we're doing the survey, cluster assessment. Elizabeth, next slide, please. This is basically what I've what I've explained in the previous slide, how these assessments are conducted. With the, it's still, we haven't done a lot of clusters. As you can see, we've only done a few clusters, 43 clusters. So that's about 159 plots. One cluster is four plots, so 159 plots, only 43 clusters. We haven't covered most of the country yet, basically mainly due to funding issues. But for now, this is the data that we have. As you can see, it's we have collected about 8,803 individual tree species, over 16,000 plant specimens collected, and the geometric moths and fruit flies and ants, as you can see there. So that's what basically what we have done so far. We would like to at least cover the country with and then give a good get a good kind of an idea of the forest in PNG. So yeah, we have mainly covered I think 5-6 provinces. So we have about 21 provinces in the country, and we only covered 5 to 6 provinces. So at least we want to at least get a good sample throughout the country and different forest types. So we have mainly covered the low altitude forest areas, and but yeah. So thank you. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I'll just take over from here with the interest of time, noting that we have very limited time. So this is basically just the YouTube channel that was developed for the demonstration or demo videos from the Red Plus activity. So maybe in your own time, you can go to that YouTube channel and have a look at some of the work that was initially done in the for the NFI and some other related activities with Red Plus itself. Okay, so basically this is just the system trying to show the PNG resource network system. So basically you have the information from different government agencies that is fed into the main system, or what we call the National Forest Monitoring System. So you'll notice that you have information from the Conservation, the Department of Lands, Mineral Resource Authority, the Climate Change Development Authority, the National Statistics Office, the Department of Agriculture and Forestry, Department of Agriculture and Livestock, and we also have the PNG Forest Authority. So most of the information are fed into this the main system to give you the broader picture of the National Forest Monitoring System. So some of these components I've already touched base in the previous slide, so we'll move on. Basically, this is the Red Plus website, or the web service information that you will note that some of these things that were mentioned by the National Red Plus Strategy, the National Forest Monitoring System, the Forest Reference Level, and the Safeguard Information System is basically on this the website. So this website is managed by the Climate Change Development Authority, and you'll notice there is the PNG real-time deforestation alerts and monitoring system. So this is a new a way of monitoring in terms of the deforestation happening in real time here in PNG. So you mostly get alerts from the system itself. So this is what the National Forest Monitoring, or the web portal in terms of climate change and forest monitoring web portal. So you can see there, the portal itself manages a lot of information. So if you want to know anything about mitigation or REDD+, there is a specific option for that. So you can have go to that link that's provided here on this slide, and you can navigate around and get familiar with the different information that is stored on this web portal itself. So this one is the climate change and forest monitoring web portal. So initially we mentioned about the different government agencies having their own system, and how this information is fed into the main system, or what we call the web portal itself. So some of these things we've mentioned it on the collector, the Terra PNG, and having this time series of these satellite images. Okay, so this is one of the this is the deforestation alerts and monitoring system. So basically, this shows you what you can in terms of monitoring. So basically, these are the 6 or 7 steps that you would normally, if you want to monitor a specific area, you can, or what we call the area of interest, and then you can do these different steps. In order for you to get this specific alert, you have to subscribe to the main subscribe area for you to more or less receive the alerts through by emails. So this is just to show you what in terms of the deforestation and monitoring system. So there is a link provided in this slide as well. You can go through this after this session just to see what you can see from the actual information provided. Okay, so this is a sample of the deforestation alert system and monitoring system. So this is what, when you click onto the link, this is what you can see, and you can navigate around it. There is also a demo video that's part of the YouTube channel as well. So you can click on the link provided below for you to have a look at that, that will run through how you use this system itself. Okay, so this is the REDD+ and carbon registry management system. So basically what we were talking about, the national REDD+ strategy, the safeguard information system, the forest reference level, the national forest monitoring system. So all these elements, they have specific information or data that is specific, which more or less contributes to the development of these international reports, like the biannual update report, and also the inclusion of the REDD+ technical annex. So this system, you can see this has a variety of different sources of information that's required for the specific elements. Okay, this one is the REDD+ and carbon offsets projects or programs list in PNG. So this is the, you notice there is a link that is provided just above the slide. This registry is managed by the Climate Change Development Authority. So you will notice that there is some projects in the shown right now. So you can go through that link again and have a look at what for those different projects and what stages they are at the moment in terms of the voluntary carbon standards. Yeah. Okay, so now we'll run through the overview of the forest reference level and the biannual update and the REDD+ technical annex. So this is the simplified FREL in terms of the process. I'm sorry, my apologies. I'm not able to see at the top of the screen right now. But anyway, I can see it now. So it's the simplified forest reference development process in PNG. So you will notice that for you to develop your forest reference level, you need this, so you need the forest definition, the forest reference, technical parameters, the forest and land use assessment, data analysis and results, and then that should develop your forest reference level. So under these different categories, we'll briefly touch in the next couple of slides, but you will notice that under the first definition, these are some of these things are country specific too. Yep. So we'll go on to the next slide because of interest of time. Okay, so basically this slide shows you the REDD+ activities included in the forest reference level, or what we call scope. So I believe most is aware of the REDD+ activities. So you have the reducing emissions from deforestation, and then you have reducing emissions from forest degradation and enhancement of forest carbon stocks, conservation of forest carbon stocks. So, and then the sustainable management of forest. So these are more or less, these two activities at the bottom are more related to in terms of the policies and measures. So before you develop your forest reference level, you have to identify what type of activity that you would like for the country to report. So for PNG, we'll move on to the next slide and we'll just touch based on that one. Okay, so this one is just the, in terms of scopes, these are REDD+ activities and the land change matrix. So this slide is supposed to give you an idea as to, for instance, if you have a primary forest and there is no activity, then we know that the forest is stable. So it can be considered as in terms of REDD+ activities under forest conservation. If this forest is converted to, it's degraded by logging, then we know that this is undergone forest degradation. And there's some activity showing if the forest is completely removed, there is no total cover, then it's converted into other land use, then that is primary deforestation. So this land matrix just shows you what you have in terms of having a primary and degraded, and what when the activity, different activities is more or less done on that specific land use or the forest type. These are some of the things that in terms of degradation, deforestation. Okay, all right, so I'm running out of time. So this is just basically the FRL building blocks for the development of the forest reference level. So these are some of the things that you need in order to develop your forest reference level. Okay, so this one here is just a summary of what PNG has submitted early this year in 2023 in January. So for our case, we've included the forest degradation, forest deforestation, and carbon enhancement stock. And we're looking in terms of carbon pools, it's above ground, below ground biomass, and the gas that we are reporting is carbon dioxide. And much of the data is from the collected assessment. So basically, this is briefly in terms of what PNG has submitted. Okay, so this is just a diagram of the a graph showing our PNG's first forest reference level that was submitted. So in our first submission, we used the linear in terms of showing the results. So we've got the forest reference level, the historical, the emissions are from 2001 to 2013, and the reference period was 2014 to 18. So there's a link provided at the bottom as well. You want to have access to it, you can click onto the link to have access to the first forest reference level that was submitted. Okay, in terms of PNG's biennial update report 1 and 2 and REDD+ results, we did, there's the two based on the results, the REDD+ results for years 2014 and 15. It's measured against the forest reference level that was part of the REDD+ technical annex is about 9 million tons of CO2 equivalent. So that's what's showing on the graph. You see the red dotted lines and there's a line that runs through it. And at the bottom, this is the current one that is currently under review. So this is for the PNG second biannual update report. So that's that 61 million tons of CO2 equivalent. So that's still under review at the moment through the UNFCCC assessment part of the technical assessment. Okay, so this is basically PNG's second submission to the UNFCCC for the forest reference level. So you will notice that we have, in terms of the information provided here, you can see there is some information that's given here. So it's about saying that it's going to, in terms of the CO2 equivalent, is about 40 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year. So my apologies that I have to go through this quickly because of time. So the presentation will be made available through the organizers, so you can have a look at it. And if you have any questions, you can come back to us on that. Yeah. Okay, so I guess this is probably the last part of the presentation. So this is the plan of what PNG intends to do in terms of its first transparency report, biannual transparency report, or BTR. So this one here is just showing us in terms of enhanced transparency. So this basically shows like a progression of what different countries so they have to do in preparation for the submission itself. So you can have a look at this later on. Just move on to the next. Okay, so this is just the roadmap in terms of the agriculture, forestry, and other land use, so what we call AFLU. So this is showing what PNG has done so far. So in terms of progress from 2020 and then leading up to 2025. So basically, these are the different activities for the enhanced national determined contribution, the biannual update, transparency report update, and the FREL and the greenhouse gas inventory report. Yep. Okay, so for the next assessment for the land use change and forestry assessment, we are looking at doing it on a multi-stakeholder approach. So basically, we want to include other government agencies like the Environment and Conservation Authority, Department of Agriculture and Livestock, Department of Lands and Physical Planning to be part of this process. So right now it's been PNG Forest Authority that we've been mostly doing much of the assessment and generating much of the data that's being generated from the assessment itself. We're also looking at the stratified random sample, which is another option. Right now, we've been using a systematic sampling, so we would see this as an opportunity to also look at the stratified random sample. Okay, so this is probably the last part of this presentation. So basically, this is just a summary and a way forward for PNG. So you've noticed that PNG has progressed a lot in terms of REDD+ readiness and commitment to climate change in terms of its nationally determined contribution. And we've developed a robust national forest monitoring system, or the monitoring reporting verification system using the Collect Earth, and also develop monitoring services such as the web portal and the deforestation alert systems for policies and measures, and as well the overall transparency. So I guess my colleague during the part of the NFI did not mention this, but one of the papers that was one of the outcomes of the National Forest Inventory project under the European Union was one of the papers that was published in the California Press, University Press, got was the runner-up of the best paper. So far, about 13 papers were published in this press, and one of that was received the runner-up in 2020. And also we submitted, PNG has submitted its first FREL in 2017, the BUR with the RED Plus technical annex on RED Plus in 2019, the BUR in 2021, as well as the second FREL in 2023, and the reports have gone through the UNFCCC, or what we call the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the technical assessments, and then PNG has submitted the Green Climate Fund, RED Plus, or RED results-based payment. That's from 2014 to 2015, and the R-Trees concept note for 2017 to 2021. Leaf proposal, that's for the period of 2022 to 2026. So like I said previously in the previous slide about PNG's discussing on designing stakeholders, LULUCF assessment in 2023 for the first biannual transparency report using the open forest tools that's collected with the option of the desktop or the online CPAL and EarthMap with the sample-based area estimation. So I think that's the last, that brings me to the end of this presentation. Thank you. And my apologies for taking a bit more time. I noticed that I was only given the last 3 minutes, so I'll hand it back to Nicholas and Rika to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and don't worry about the time because it was a really informative and educational presentation. So congrats for all the work that you are doing over there in PNG. Just I want to recall that this is the third episode of the Forest and Climate Transparency webinar series that we are organizing together with IPSA and FAO. So this webinar is being recorded, and the 3 episodes will be available at the IPSA YouTube channels and also through a blog made by FAO in the coming weeks. So in our previous episode, we start with Latin America, addressing the case from Chile and Costa Rica. Then we go to Africa and learning from the Ghana experience. And in these previous episodes, we have learned that each country faces its own challenge and barriers. So I would like to start these Q&A sections, a really short one due to the time, asking you, Elizabeth, about what were the challenge and barriers that you faced in development of this national forestry inventory, and how did you overcome them? So please, if you can answer this question.
Okay, probably I'll answer, and then if John, my colleague, has something he can add on. I guess the main barrier, I think we put it in the PowerPoint presentation, but that was probably not mentioned by John. So basically, considering the country's geographical in terms of the rugged terrain, and then the other issue is the land tenure, because most of the land is customary land owned. So for us, in order to do the inventories, we have to seek consent with the landowners or the resource owners before we can actually access those areas to conduct the inventory itself. I think the other part was on the security because of the different cultures and everything. So this poses a bit of problem for us as well. So you need to have a good communication in terms of the information that you want to bring across to them and why you're trying to do this work in the first place, and what's the purpose, and from this information, how can they use it in terms of looking at the at the local level, but also looking at the provincial or district in terms of plans and all that. So we've faced, currently we still have issues with that, but we see it as a challenge, but as a way of moving forward, we have to come up with better strategic plans or communication in terms of how to get across some of those barriers. But at the moment, you may note that in our last National Forest Inventory we did was way back in 2019. So it's been 4 years and we haven't really done any inventory. So basically we've tried to look at different options in development support in terms to assist the PNG, because PNG in terms of the implementation of its National Forest Inventory. So that's what I can say, unless my colleague John can has something else to add, and he can add on. Thanks.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I don't know if John have any comment regarding to this question.
Just what Elizabeth said. I think the challenge is yes, the landowners dealing with local people is a challenge here in PNG. So that's probably one of the difficulties, is to dealing with the locals here. It's not that it's impossible. It's just that anything that works in one province doesn't work in the other. So the different provinces a different approach, I think. So that was the main challenge, besides the funding and all that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And besides this challenge, definitely you are doing a great job over there in PNG. So thank you for all that efforts. Before to give the floor to Rocio Kondo from FAO, I really want to thanks to the Professor Jason Paliao and his students. They are from the School of Environment and Climate Change and from the Papua New Guinea University of Natural Resource and Environment. So we can see you there all together in the classroom. So thank you for connecting to this third episode. Now I would like to pass the floor to Rocio from Forestry Division of FAO. So please, Rocio.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. I will avoid using my camera because I have some issues right now. But yeah, first of all, I would like to thank Elizabeth and John from the Papua New Guinea Forest Authority and my colleagues also from FAO Papua New Guinea Country Office for their support. And as part of this preparation, IFSA, so thanks to you also, Nicholas, that has contacted the Papua New Guinea University of Technology, the University of Papua New Guinea, the School of Natural and Physical Science, and the Papua New Guinea University of Natural Resource and Environment. So as you all know, planning successful long-term implementation of a national forest monitoring system requires accompanying research. Elizabeth and John have shown us the importance of forest data transparency in Papua New Guinea. And let me take advantage of this space to invite you all to delve deeper into forest data transparency. FAO has made available educational material, including a self-paced course on forest and transparency under the Paris Agreement, available for free at any time, anywhere in 6 UN languages. And you can get your digital badge certification. Now, let me share some concluding remarks with all of you. In 2005, together with Costa Rica, Papua New Guinea proposed the concept of reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, REDD+, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Since then, the country has been working on preparing for REDD+ and setting up its national forest monitoring system. As you have seen during the webinar, accurate and transparent information regarding forest status and changing is essential for sustainable management of the nation's forest. To collect, analyze, and disseminate forest-related data, countries have put in place national forest monitoring systems from which data and information is derived. Countries have made substantial progress in developing and enhancing their national systems, which make it possible to provide better data for decision-making. And evidence of this has been shown in the 3 episodes delivered so far by Chile, Costa Rica, Ghana, and today by PNG. It is crucial to make these efforts visible and inform students and young professionals about the advances in forest data transparency. Today, we are closing the webinar series organized by IFSA and the FAO. So thanks to all of you who have followed us. Let me close by announcing that yesterday, our CPAL free self-paced version course related to forest and land monitoring is now available and open to all. Follow us because new self-paced e-learning courses related to forest monitoring for climate action will be available. And mark your calendars. At the end of November, we will have a dedicated webinar to inform about these courses. Thank you for your attention. I pass you to Nicolas.
Thank you, Rocio, for your words. I invite you to all the attendees to follow the YouTube IFSA channel and keep aware to the uploading of this recording, and so you can check this and the other 2 episodes of the Forest and Climate Transparency webinar series. Now, all being said, I would like to close the meeting and, of course, keep connected. The presentation will be shared through email by request, so we can keep in contact. Thank you all for your attendance and have a good evening, good afternoon, or good morning from wherever you are connecting. Thank you, Elizabeth and John, for being our speakers today. Bye to all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.